Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm excited to be here today with Dr. Susan Campbell. Thank you so much for being here, Susan.
Thank you for inviting me, Shana.
Yes, we are going to talk about men's vulnerability and vulnerable dynamics in relationships. And we were both saying before this that, often vulnerable dynamics in relationships are even more vulnerable for men with the social conditioning and the way men have been taught to man up and not show your emotions and all of that. And, in this time of transition and change, for those of you who are listening to this now, currently, right, we're in a time where the coronavirus, where COVID-19 is happening. Most of us are isolated in our homes. You're spending a lot more time with your partner if you have one. And, there are things to be afraid of and things to be worried about. And it's a challenging time. And so I feel excited today to talk about vulnerability with you, Susan, and, to give some support for men who are out there and not feeling okay being vulnerable, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, and just bringing up the coronavirus has me thinking ordinarily we would be talking about emotional vulnerability. But there's a physical vulnerability that is affecting some of the couples that I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
People feeling like at risk for various reasons, whether it's an age, a medical condition, or just their own personality style, and
right.
and then wanting their partner to hear that.
Yes, right, because that physical vulnerability then creates an emotional vulnerability.
Yes, they're tied together.
Yeah. So, all right, let me give you a quick intro for those of you who don't know about your work, and then we can dive into that.
Yeah.
So Dr. Susan Campbell has authored 9 books on relationships and conflict resolution and has delivered hundreds of seminars and workshops internationally and has counseled thousands of individuals and couples. She has been on the radio and TV. She's appeared on CNN's Newsnight and Good Morning America. And she's accomplished in the business world as well. She's directed a think tank, run nonprofit organizations, consulted Fortune 500 companies, and guest lectured at the Harvard, Stanford, and UCLA business schools. So you have a wide range of experience. Some of you may know her book titles, The Couple's Journey, Beyond the Power Struggle, Getting Real, Truth in Dating, Finding Love by Getting Real, and her new book, The 5-Minute Relationship Repair. So you may be familiar with some of these books, but Susan, thank you so much for bringing your incredible wealth of knowledge here today with us.
Well, it's always fun. It's always fun to do this kind of thing. Yeah. I joke around, just ask me anything. I can speak about almost any topic.
I love it. Well, let's go back to the fact that, right, we are in a particularly vulnerable time right now. And any time of physical vulnerability also leads to emotional vulnerability. And I guess I'm wondering let's just dive in, right? Any support, any wisdom you have for couples or people who are trying to navigate this vulnerability, and especially for men, where this hasn't been the norm, this hasn't been welcomed in our culture. Where would you tell them to start?
Well, when you talk, and I heard your TED Talk, and when you talk about how our culture affects men's ability to show up and to show their vulnerability, my work is called the Getting Real work, and it generally aims at focus on, whether you're male or female, focus on your own development, which is basically the hero's journey that Joseph Campbell talks about and that mythology talks about, the hero's journey of becoming your own true, authentic self, differentiated from what your culture has told you you're supposed to be. That is the journey of a lifetime.
Yes.
However, you have to take into account how you've been conditioned to cover over certain weaknesses, perhaps, or to not ask for what you want for fear of being too needy, to not admit insecurities when they come up in relationships. So yes, that is part of particularly the male conditioning, but to some degree, it's part of everyone's conditioning because we live in kind of a avoidant culture, a culture that's more focused on getting the task done. And even with your emotions, what to do to have different results. It's a very results oriented. And you and I are part of a different subculture, which has people slow down. And before you talk about what you should do with that feeling, how about feeling the feeling first?
How about feeling it first?
Let's not be so quick to try to get away from the feeling. But that's a subculture that, I've been in since I was in my 20s. So, and there's a new wave of it called the authentic relating movement and so forth. And all the stuff you've been involved with for probably 20 years at least. But I've been involved with this sort of stuff for 55 years. So I just want to say that there's always been a subculture of people who are looking at how to be your own unique self in spite of what the culture tells you. Yeah, and there's always been support for that. And so we need to find each other. That's
we're finding each other. And for those who are out there, kind of swimming in the ocean, not really aware of other people who are doing this, I just want to say, it felt, I imagine this for you too, but you can say so, but it felt really risky for me in the beginning because I was raised in a family, in a culture where getting real was not the MO. And so, there was a part of me that longed for it and was just like, God, could people actually just talk about something real? But then it was also terrifying. And so, I'm imagining some couples, this could be a beautiful opportunity for couples to get more real with each other when they're at home and forced into, it's like forced connection in a way. But a lot of couples
to work out their differences too, like about, some of the people that I know, who to bring into your house.
Yeah.
Or how often to go out to the store, safety issues like that. And you have to admit vulnerability to your partner if there's a difference coming up.
Okay, that's a good one too, right? Like if you're not admitting vulnerability when there's a difference coming up, then I imagine people are more defended, more, projecting on each other, attacking each other.
Well, yes. And there's admitting your physical vulnerability and depending on what kind of relationship you've had already with your partner, like maybe you have a compromised immune system due to some kind of health, autoimmune or some kind of health thing. So maybe you're the man and you're the one with a compromised immune system, but you're used to taking care of everything because the compromised immune system didn't bother you at all
Right.
before the coronavirus. I mean, you were still the man who
Mm-hmm.
goes out and prunes the trees and runs the tractor. I mean, where I live, men still do things like that, you know,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we all have country properties out here in Sonoma County. And,
Yeah.
you know, my partner and I hire that to be done most of the time, but my partner gets out there. He's the man. He's pruning the
Yeah.
trees, you
But
know.
suddenly you
And
might be
suddenly
compromised.
he's old. He's older than me. You know, we don't have this particular issue, but there's some, you know, some friends of mine that I know where the man was very much in charge and the go-to guy for, honey, can you help me do this or that?
Yeah.
And now he's got to be real honest about what his needs are, about his wife's socializing.
Yeah.
You know, she has a lot of social needs. So it's, you know, he has no trouble being vulnerable. I mean, he's part of this
Your
culture that
partner.
I'm part of, you
Yeah.
know.
But what would you suggest for men who this is a time where if they're not getting vulnerable, they may be putting themselves physically at risk? And this is not just in the coronavirus, but it could happen at any point in time. But now it's a particularly poignant time where, you know, we're getting to see, oh, if I'm not getting vulnerable, these needs might not get met. And that could cost me my health.
Yeah, and like you said, I mean, getting vulnerable just means telling the truth, in this case, about your needs and your fears and making
Ooh,
requests of your partner. You
I
know,
like that.
could could we each talk about how we're relating to this? Because it's a very ambiguous threat right now.
Yes. Yes.
No one knows exactly, you know, there's arguments. Is it airborne? Or, I mean, you know, does the virus spread airborne or not? There's all kinds of different medical
Theories.
predictions.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think the ability to just show that you have needs and that you're a little bit afraid to be a pain in the ass. You know, I mean, anybody who's asking their partner to curtail their social life
Yeah.
because of my health issues,
Yeah.
that's natural to feel like, oh no, I don't want to be a pain in the ass.
But I love what you're saying too. Like, well, first of all, I just want to go back to repeat what you said, that vulnerability is really just telling the truth about your needs, desires, fears, right? And whatever that reason is, whether you're afraid of being a pain or whether it was never okay for you in the past, whatever it is, there are things that keep us from speaking up about our truth. But, you know, like you said, the differentiation of, wow, could I actually just be me? Could I actually just say what I want and need without all the stories, you know, that keep me from knowing what I need and actually speaking it? I mean, that would be a different world for most of us.
Yeah, and I have an exercise that I give people because of the fact that what I teach is called getting real. People come to me with the presenting problem of, I don't have a good way of being there for myself. I give myself away. I
Yes.
agree when I really don't mean to be agreeable and that sort of thing. So there's an exercise, and I'll just give it to our listeners
Yeah.
right now, is like, think of a instance. If you can be, you know, male, female, or any gender identity here. Think of an instance when you did not speak up authentically, or an instance where you know there's a clearing the air that needs to happen with somebody important to you, and you're kind of avoiding it for some reason. So you think of an instance where you didn't speak your truth, and let's make it a vulnerable truth in this case. You know, asking for something that you want. So it wouldn't be this. But even to say no to a good friend is vulnerable, I think.
Yes.
No, I don't want to risk damaging the connection. So to first think of the instance, and then you think about, okay, what reason do I give myself? It's like the time when you said something, but you went along with it, but you didn't say what you really meant to say.
Yeah.
So you think of why you chose to withhold your truth. What's the reason you gave yourself? And so some of the reasons that people say are, well, like I said, I don't want to be a pain. I don't want to be a pain. I don't want to be perceived as needy.
I don't want to blow things up. I don't want to rock the boat.
I don't want to blow things up. Yeah. I don't want to get back into it with the person. I want to protect the person's feelings, so I don't want to clear the air or say anything. But all these I don't want tos. Have you got any more before I interrupt?
God, right. I mean, there's hundreds more, right? But
there's lots more. It's like the excuses you give yourself, but the excuses or the stories, as we say, they have tenderness built into them. They're a doorway into seeing what some of your more vulnerable needs are, such as, I don't want to get back into it with this person, because the pain of that is something that I'm afraid I can't handle. I mean, that's a vulnerability.
Yeah.
Or every time we get into it, I kind of feel inept and don't know how to cope. That's a vulnerability. Or even I'm afraid of hurting this person. That it may be more of that you're afraid of hurting the person, and then they will take some distance from you.
Right.
Or seeing them in pain will cause you some kind of pain that you don't think you can handle. Right. So all of these answers to that question are all about your own vulnerability. No, the reason I didn't say that. And so just as we go through, this is an exercise. I recommend you do it every single day. Right. So then you're beginning to develop some tenderness or compassion towards yourself. You see that, oh yeah, even though it was an excuse, there's some situation under there that I'm not sure I can handle. And I'm admitting that to myself.
Yeah.
Then the next piece of the exercise is, okay, you're in the privacy of your own bedroom right now, or your own office. Say those words, pretending to say them to the person that you would actually have said had you felt completely safe. Nothing bad was going to happen. Yeah. And so you go ahead and you clear the air with that roommate who seems to always leave things for you to have to clean up. The person at work who's not pulling their weight. The wife who just turns a cold shoulder to you when you reach out to her. Right. Sex. So
just saying the words with nobody there.
Stop asking.
Get them out.
Say the words. That's hard for a lot of people because you're just not used to doing things like this.
No, I do a lot of that practicing in my practice, right? With my clients, it's like a place to speak up where the stakes are not as high, but I love this way too. Just saying it out to yourself.
Yeah, speak it with a counselor or coach. That's always a good way too. But you can this is self-therapy.
Yeah, I love this.
In the privacy of your own home. So you say the words and then you go, okay, how did it feel to say, honey, I want to talk to you about our sex life. I am not happy. I mean,
not getting what
maybe that doesn't sound super vulnerable, but I think that sounds guy who's ever been in that situation, how vulnerable it is.
Yeah.
Conversation.
Incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah. And for women too, sometimes.
For anybody.
That has to come from the woman. Whoever's feeling it's where it has to come from.
Yeah. So
you feel what it feels like to say those words, and then you ask yourself, you feel it. Would it be appropriate to go and have that conversation with the actual person?
And how do you determine appropriate?
And yes, that's the piece. Knowing that it's not as safe necessarily as saying it in the privacy of your own bedroom. The answer, you have to answer the question, am I willing to risk the thing happening that I'm actually afraid of? Which is, she's going to say, well, I told you I'm not interested in sex anymore. I told you that. I told you can go do whatever you want with other people. Don't bug me. What if she says that? That's going to hurt so much.
Right. All those what ifs.
Are you willing to risk that? And you have to be willing to risk if you're going to go out and actually do it. But there's great benefit in even doing it just to the point where you did it with yourself.
Right. Right. And I love the risk, because that's what I keep thinking too. It's like, it's not that this is easy. It takes risk, and it takes a willingness to turn things upside down and inside out and change dynamics and possibly break things. But I think the without doing it, it's another kind of pain. It's usually a staleness or a distance or an like feeling alone and isolated even when you're with someone.
That's a hugely important point, is how many people feel isolated even when they're with somebody and having chit chat every day, because they're not having so many important conversations. And even if the conversation doesn't come out so everybody gets what they want, just having the important conversations and feeling my discomfort and feeling your discomfort with the status quo, let's say the sex life question. But we both have discomfort around that. We both have vulnerability around that, actually. Even the one who says, I'm not interested anymore.
Right.
Because deep down, by my not being interested, I have some feelings that I'm not enough for you, maybe, which I'm covering up with,
lack of interest, like a protection.
Things like, well, I told you, you can cover up, and I told you that's all you could expect of me, but underneath there's other feelings. And
totally,
I do think this whole coronavirus is pointing us, especially couples and families who are now kind of cooped up together. It's pointing, I want to say to people, do your work now before the next crisis. I always say this to people. You got to do your work before the crisis comes. So now that the crisis is here, it's like, in a way, it's kind of too late for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because they're in such a pressure cooker now that doing the work, I don't know. I'm helping a lot of couples and families through this, but I tell you, it'd be so much easier if you had already done the work of learning to sit with discomfort, face to face with people you love, including your children.
Yeah, I wonder what would shift, and if you've seen this, if when two people both actually get that each person is vulnerable, that it's not just their own side that's vulnerable, but even if they're being rejected, like you said, that the rejecter has a vulnerability and the rejectee has a vulnerability, how that would change dynamics.
Yeah, I always, we had an earlier conversation, you and I, Shana, about this, where I have exercises in almost all my workshops where we look at, all the people who tend to be more of the want to make up right away after a fight, or keep talking, the people who just want to keep talking and never pause. And then you go to the other side of the room, the people who need a little breather, who need to calm their nervous systems down before they can even think straight, that type of thing. And so then I'll ask, okay, the people who want to keep talking, what's the vulnerability? Because they look like, to the people who want to take it slow and take a break for a while. If this person is banging on my door, we got to talk. That person looks very threatening.
Right.
But let's pause. That person who's pursuing you and knocking on your door, what are they afraid of? They're afraid of abandonment. They're afraid of disconnection. They're afraid you're going away. Yeah. And then the ones who are, let's say locked in their office trying to get a breather. This is Eric and Donna in my book, 5-Minute Relationship Repair. And Eric's in the office trying to get a breather. And, I think we can easily empathize. His vulnerability is, I get overwhelmed with too much intensity. He doesn't see that. And when I do this in workshops, and a lot of times it's the men who are saying they get overwhelmed with the too much intensity, and a lot of times it is the women. I mean, a lot of times it is polarized, not entirely though, by
Yeah.
any means.
Yeah.
But when the women can hear the men talk about that, and just give me a little more time to get back in my body, please. I want to hear you, but
Right.
I'm not.
It's not like I want to reject you, or this isn't about me trying to push you away. Sometimes that this is about my own vulnerability.
Yeah. And each personality style has their own strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And we got to get used to that.
Yeah.
And so the people who do get easily overwhelmed by intense emotions, or more easily, need to be able to admit that.
Yeah.
But I think people like you and me, teachers, we can use terms like this and people will recognize themselves. And I'm hoping we're making it more socially acceptable to admit these kinds of things to ourselves and to our partners.
Yeah.
Our fears. I'm afraid that when you go into your office, that means you hate me.
Right.
Oh man, that hurts. Letting people feel that and accept that is what our work is about, you and me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can feel the tenderness in that. Like, oh, right, I'm afraid that you hate me, and I'm afraid that you're leaving me. And then how, for many couples, it triggers the, well, I'm not leaving you. That wasn't my intention. I wasn't this. Now you're thinking that I'm doing something I'm not doing, and so how that dynamic spirals downward.
That's right. That's a good example of where it tends to go. And if we can just slow it down and stay on the feeling level, we get to the wanting to explain yourself level.
Yes.
If we can stay with the feeling level just a little longer, later for the explaining, you know what I mean?
Yep.
And so, but that is what we want. We want to be heard. We want to be understood.
Yes.
So I don't want to say, don't explain yourself. It's just that when the man in that situation can hear that she's going, I'm afraid you don't like me anymore, then he at least, even in his overwhelm, starts to feel a little safer with her.
Right.
And so we can, each of us, depending on how vulnerable I'm willing to be, I can help my partner feel safer and thus able to be more vulnerable with me.
Right.
And also, if I say, I'm afraid you don't like me, he feels safe enough because I'm not like pushing on him right then. I'm just revealing. Mm-hmm. He might develop a little more resourcefulness and be able to actually reassure me and say, honey, I do want to talk to you. I do want us to hear each other. Give me 5 minutes.
Right. I need some space.
And that is a little bit reassuring to her, or I still love you, but I'm just overwhelmed.
Right.
He
I still love you. And
finds a better way
to
at least reach out a little bit to her, even while he's not fully present.
Yeah. Right. I still love you. And I might be frustrated or angry right now, but that doesn't mean I don't love you.
Yeah, a little reassurance can go a long way. In promoting a continued safety around being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Because to be vulnerable, it does require both internal safety and safety in the field, in the context.
Yes.
And the context is mainly what we're talking about is a intimate relationship.
Yeah. Okay. And can we go back to when you were saying, staying with the feeling longer? If we were to guide a couple right now with, okay, once you start noticing that you're defending or that you're explaining yourself, if they really just stayed in the feeling like, oh, I'm scared. And then the other one could actually name a feeling. Do you have couples do that where they go back and forth just with the feelings?
Yes. And also while one partner is observing, I will help, let's say partner B is observing and I'll help partner A. Let's say she's the female. Okay, I'll help her. Okay, that inner talk that he doesn't like me. Okay, what's the feeling with that? And as I have them stay with the feeling, they'll get more into their bodies. They'll get more into their hearts sometimes. Sometimes old memories will come of
Uh-huh.
other things that are unfinished between them that are causing mistrust. Sometimes childhood memories will come up about fearing that you're not liked or not lovable.
Yep.
And that can all happen in like 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes. Yes.
You just sort of, if you just stay with the feeling and follow it wherever it takes you, and then people can learn to report that to their partner.
Yeah.
Well, at first they need to learn to do it, to be
Uh-huh.
that patient with themselves, because everybody's in a hurry these days, to get to the quick fix. You just pause, like, honestly, 2 minutes with yourself.
Yeah.
And then you let yourself have all those feelings. Then you come back and you report them to your partner, or if they're in a session with me, they've already been reporting them out loud.
Mm-hmm.
And then, then I'll turn to partner B, and he's the one that is afraid, is just completely overwhelmed and afraid that he can't cope
Yeah.
with the situation. And then when he feels into his overwhelm, then he's got a different set of memories coming up that also he's able to bring some tenderness and compassion. So it's like you activate your compassionate witness
Yes.
by doing conscious pauses to feel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, that's always a good thing, because that all of a sudden helps everybody get more comfortable with what I call the normal pain of an adult relationship.
Ooh.
There are normal pains
Yes.
that mimic childhood pains, and they're an opportunity to heal. Childhood pains, like the feeling that nobody's paying attention to me, everybody else is getting the limelight, and I must not matter.
Yeah.
And the adult relationship is the perfect place to bring those vulnerabilities and to reveal them to your partner,
So that they can
we'll
heal.
just say that increases the safety in the whole system. And I want a world like that. I want a world where everybody feels safe and helps each other feel safe.
Yeah. And where we can express those things and we don't have to collapse into them or think that's the only thing here. And so now I can't do my work or be with you or anything, but right, that, oh, this is a part of me that's happening right now that I can acknowledge so that we can be closer, we can be connected, we can trust each other.
It definitely builds trust when you stop blaming your partner for your pain and say, hey, honey, I can see now that I've always had a sensitivity to this kind of thing, to somebody walking away from me. Just the sight of you turning your back and walking away just floods me with memory, and you own your own stuff. And, when I talk to people who have worked on themselves a lot, they say, all I want and they're dating, all I want is a partner who's doing their inner work.
Yes.
And I just want to say, put in a plug for dating, using a dating relationship. I know it's not a real good time with this social distancing right now with the virus,
Well, maybe it is. Maybe it is a good time for people to actually date virtually, and so that the sex doesn't, throw a wrench into things in the beginning, and they can actually get to know each other for real.
This could be a great thing for internet dating and learn, getting to know somebody through Zoom or Skype. Slow it down. It could slow things down in a good way.
Right.
Yeah. But the idea just of learning to do this right up front. In the Truth in Dating book, I talk about flirting with presence, like talking about what's in the present moment coming up for you right now.
Yes.
As you are looking at her, as you saw her walking across the room, just whatever, saying what's there in the moment. And that's dating is always vulnerable, no matter what you're saying.
It is, but that, right, I talk about that too, these different levels of when you get into that relational present moment, right, that's where the spark is and the heat is and the intimacy is, and it makes it so much more rich and connected, and it's risky and vulnerable.
Yeah.
But I think if you know, I mean, I think from what you were saying too, it's like if you know why it's vulnerable for you, because you know that you were rejected a lot when you were young, or you know that you have a particular sensitivity around something, then it doesn't have to be such a personal affront, or, oh, there's something wrong with me if somebody doesn't actually like how I'm being or what I'm doing.
Or at least you can use it if there's an ouch there.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe, you know enough in your cognitive brain not to take it personally.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still an emotional ouch there. And you let it be there, and you bring a moment of tenderness to your own ouch, and you become a much more resilient dater.
Yes. Yes.
Really. I mean, I have a formula, and that's basically it. A moment of presence and compassion, even when you're in the middle of an ouch.
So
and
good.
Then after you've done that a while, and stop thinking the world should conform to your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean about accepting that there are normal pains in a relationship, in an adult relationship. Yeah. Children deserve way more than they get. Okay. It's impossible to be a good parent because children's needs are huge.
Immense.
Okay? So we're all going to grow up somewhat damaged, folks. Yes. Because you've got a kid, Right. So, I want to.
And now with me, most of the time.
We get to heal ourselves. We get a second chance in our adult relationships to help each other heal.
Oh, well, thank you so much for this conversation. I'm wondering, what do you want to leave people with for today?
I think the idea of, if you're thinking about somebody that, why aren't they more vulnerable with me? Let's just start with that, because your topic, Shana, I bet attracted a lot of women. You have the TED about men, but the women are going, yeah, Shana, these men. And, I mean, they feel compassion for them, but still, come on, man.
Yeah.
I want to say to the women mostly, or to anyone who's wishing the other would be more vulnerable with you, is how safe a presence are you? How much do you expect from the other person versus take what you're given and let the other person honestly know how that impacts you? Yeah. That's different than expecting and criticizing. So I want to say that if you want somebody to be more vulnerable with you, you probably have to be somewhat willing to start with, where does that want in you come from? Yeah. That's actually something vulnerable about you. You probably want it to be safer for you to be vulnerable. Yes. Okay. So own that and start with that. Start with your own feelings and needs, and that'll help make it safe for whoever the other person is on the other end. You're not telling them what they should or shouldn't do. You're just talking about your needs to feel safe.
I love that. Thank you so much for, again, all of the work you've been doing for 55 years, and for being someone who talks about getting real in such a grounded and down to earth and, not easy to practice, but simple to practice, right? It's never easy necessarily, but I really like how you bring it into the moment with really doable practices. So for those of you who haven't read Susan's books or taken a workshop, I highly, highly recommend it. And where can they find you? Is your website the easiest place?
Yeah, SusanCampbell.com. And there they can subscribe to my newsletter. It says something about get the book on self-confidence. So I have a little free ebook that I give people when they subscribe. And then they'll only get one email a month from me. It's not like I'm real active, but you
attacking.
Yeah, I'm not bombarding. I'm not one of those
bombarding. Yes.
People who are knocking on your door every day.
Yeah.
So I sometimes do free things, free teleclasses and webinars, and I always have something going on. So Beautiful. You can keep in touch with my events.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And may you
Great.
be safe and well in your contained situation right now, too.
Thank you. I love talking to you, Shana.
Me too. I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.